I paid for my daughter's wedding, and that which stole it all. I never thought I'd speak those words. For years, I worked construction jobs under the Denver sun, saving every extra dollar, so that when my Emma got married, she wouldn't have to worry about a thing. I wanted her day to shine, to be the kind of memory a father carries to the grave with pride. And I thought I had succeeded. The ballroom glittered with gold lights. The band played like something from a movie, and the guests raised their glasses to toast what looked like the perfect couple. But behind the champagne and smiles, something rotten was already in motion. I just didn't see it. Emma had met Daniel 2 years earlier at the University of Northern Colorado. He was smooth-talking, polished in a way that made my daughter's eyes light up. He told her he was in finance, though whenever I pressed for details, his answers grew vague. Investments, markets, portfolio strategies, he'd say with that rehearsed grin. It always sounded to me like someone repeating phrases they'd picked up from TV. But Emma was in love, and when she smiled at him, I swallowed my doubts. Still, I had questions. Why did Daniel never invite us to his place? Why did he always want meetings at cafes, never at home? And why, when the topic of money came up, did he shift uncomfortably and change the subject? The day he proposed, Emma called me in tears of joy. She wanted the wedding she had dreamed of since she was a girl. Flowers from her childhood garden replicated by decorators, a live band she had adored since high school, and a reception at one of Denver's most expensive venues. I said yes without hesitation. I wanted her to have it all. What I didn't know was that while I was wiring deposits, $40,000 for the venue, $35,000 for catering, $10,000 for photography, Daniel was making arrangements of his own. At first, the signs were small. A few odd receipts in Emma's purse, charges at high-end boutiques I didn't recognize. She brushed it off, saying Daniel insisted on spoiling her. He says he wants me to feel like a queen, she told me. I almost believed it. Almost. Then came the wedding day. Everything looked flawless. But hours before the ceremony, the florist called me privately, asking why payment hadn't cleared. My blood ran cold. I had transferred the funds weeks earlier. I showed her the receipt. She apologized, said she'd check with accounting, and hung up. That was the first crack. The second came during the reception. Emma's maid of honor, her cousin Rachel, whispered to me that Daniel had been seen earlier that week at a bank with another woman, a woman who wasn't my daughter. I told Rachel not to spread rumors, not today, not on Emma's day. But the knot in my stomach tightened. It was only later, when the final bills began arriving, that the truth tore our world apart. The first bill to bounce back at me was the florist and the bands and the photo and video team with a polite but pointed, "We love capturing your family's day, but counting shows a serious discrepancy." Discrepancy, a clean word for a dirty feeling. I had wire confirmations for every deposit, yet each vendor claimed their accounts, different account numbers than the ones on my PDFs, had never received a cent. I drove to the venue myself, a grand brick building off Spear Boulevard, still smelling faintly of candle wax and roses from the night before. The manager, a tall man named Cole, who'd shaken my hand warmly on rehearsal day, met me cool as winter. "Mr. Carter," he said in a measured tone, "our records show a contract amendment changing your payment schedule and our receiving account. Unfortunately, nothing has posted." He slid a printed amendment across his desk. My name was on it. My signature, too. Except the strokes were wrong. The R in Carter hooked forward instead of back. The T-bars were too neat, not the crowded quick slash I've had since high school shop class. "I didn't sign this," I said, the words coming out gravelly. Cole folded his hands. "Then someone did it for you." I took the paper home and stared at it under my kitchen light. Emma sat at the breakfast table, still glowing from the night before, sorting card with Daniel. White envelopes, gold envelopes, heavy paper, thin paper. She kissed my cheek and thanked me again for making her dream day real. I couldn't find my voice to tell her it might already be turning into a nightmare. Instead, I asked a careful question. "Who handled that last-minute switch with the venue?" Emma blinked. "What switch?" Daniel didn't blink at all. He smiled, polite practice. "They coordinated with our planner, Vanessa. You know, Vanessa Hart. Hart in Halo Events." She said the venue wanted to move to a new merchant account. It happens at quarter end. He said it the way a guy says he knows what he's talking about and hopes you won't check. Vanessa Hart. The name landed like a metal tool dropped on concrete. She had come with bright mood boards and sparkling laughter, the kind that fills a kitchen even when nothing is funny. She'd been everywhere on wedding day, whispering with the maitre d', fluffing Emma's veil, adjusting table numbers like a conductor. "Don't you worry, Mr. Carter, you're in the best hands," she had told me, tapping my forearm. I had believed her. Fool. I dug through my emails. The invoice PDFs I'd saved from months earlier listed routing and account details for each vendor. But the week of emails, newer threads I hadn't scrutinized, attached updated remittance letters with slightly different logos and a note. "Please use our revised ACH for your convenience." The sender addresses were off by a hair. The venue's reservation email was usually events@northbrickvenue.com. These said event@northbrick-venue.com. Event versus events. A hyphen that wasn't there before. If you weren't looking, you'd never see it. Turns out I hadn't been looking. I called the florist again. "Who sent your updated account?" I asked. "Your planner's assistant," she replied. Same thread, same subject line. "We marked it paid when your bank confirmation arrived, but finance can't match the deposit. We're not saying you didn't pay. We're saying we didn't get it." 2 hours later, I was parked outside Heart and Halo Events, a small studio with white brick and a pastel sign in a shopping strip near Cherry Creek. Closed, a paper taped inside the glass. By appointment only. I dialed Vanessa's number. Straight to voicemail. I texted. No reply. I emailed. Bounce. By evening, the photographer posted a cheerful teaser on Instagram, Emma and Daniel under the string lights, while her studio manager sent a much less cheerful email blind copying a dozen people, including me. "We are opening a non-payment case Monday if we don't hear from the payer on record." The payer on record, the contract said in neat legal type, was me. The receiving email on the latest invoice, emmavenuepay@outlook.com. I remembered seeing in a hurry and thinking it was some vendor portal. It wasn't a portal. It was a fresh-made trap. That night, while Emma and Daniel packed for their honeymoon, Cancun for nights, ocean view, I spread every contract and invoice across my dining room table like a detective. I'm no detective. I pour concrete, swing hammers, sign checks. But I can follow a line when it's drawn, and someone had drawn a line straight through my bank account. I started with the planner's contract, nestled in a paragraph about payment facilitation. A clause I had skimmed said Vanessa would coordinate vendor deposits on behalf of the client. A benign sentence, until you combine it with updated remittance letters and forged amendments. I looked up the planner's business registration. Heart and Halo Events, LLC, formed 18 months ago. Registered agent. A co-working address. I searched reviews. Glossy photos, glowing captions, tag couples. Then, on a forum married folks use to complain privately, a buried thread. Beware, duplicate invoices for convenience. Money disappeared. 3 posts. No resolution. I returned to the forged signature. The more I stared, the more obvious it became. I took a photo and sent it to my buddy Luis, a site supervisor who watches everything. "You see this hook on the R?" I wrote, "I don't write like that." Luis texted back, "Not yours." I didn't need official forensics to tell me my own hand from a stranger's. Next morning, before sunrise, I showed up at the bank where I keep my construction company funds. The branch manager, a careful woman named Harper, took me into a glass-walled office. I slid her the stack, wires, PDFs, forged amendment copies. "I need to know where these went." She pursed her lips. "Mr. Carter, you authorized the wires to the accounts listed." "I authorized wires to the vendors," I said. "If the instructions change fraudulently, we'll file a fraud claim," she said. "But we can't disclose details on the recipient accounts without a legal request." She hesitated. Off the record, one of the receiving accounts was opened and closed within 10 days. She glanced at the lobby, then lowered her voice. Cash withdrawals at ATMs in Glendale and downtown. She looked at me square. Get law enforcement involved. Today, I called Emma. She answered laughing. Airport announcements in the background. Dad, we're boarding. Can it wait? I swallowed everything I wanted to say. Have a beautiful trip. I managed. Call me when you land. I hung up and made 2 calls. One to the Denver Police Department's Economic Crimes line, the other to a private investigator, a gray-haired woman named Nora that a subcontractor swore by. She finds what everyone else misses, he'd said. By noon, Nora sat at my dining table with a battered laptop and a spiral notebook. I gave her the pile. She read in silence, then began asking questions that sliced cleanly. Who had edit access to your share drive? Only me. Who had Emma's full name, address, and your bank relationship? Vendor's planner, Daniel. Who handled the RSVP website? Planner. Who printed the QR codes at the venue? Planner. Nora scribbled. We'll pull domain registration for these spoofed addresses and see who set them up. Also, any chance you saved text threads with Vanessa? I had. Nora snapped photos. Good. At 3, the venue manager cold called. Mr. Carter, we reviewed security footage from the week your payment amendment arrived. The courier who delivered, it wore a vendor pass, not ours. And, he paused, there's something else. A person with our master key entered the administrative office after a vendor meeting. She signed in as planner. He exhaled. Look, we will cooperate fully. We've already contacted our counsel. Whoever did this targeted multiple accounts. I'm sorry. I went cold. A person with their master key. Sign in as planner. I thought of Vanessa's jangling key ring, a little gold heart dangling among generic blanks. Don't you worry, Mr. Carter. The words replayed like a broken loop. At dusk, my phone buzzed. Nora again. Got a hit, she said. The hyphenated domain, northbrickvenue.com, was registered from hotel Wi-Fi in Lodo 2 weeks before the wedding. The registrant used a privacy shield, but the payment email for the domain ties back to a Gmail I've seen in 2 complaint forums, Van to Heart Events at. It matches an alias used by a planner named, wait for it, Vanessa Cole in Arizona 3 years ago. Different last name. Same initials, same business pattern. She shut down after a string of small claims in Phoenix. Nora paused. There's also a Denver police report from 6 months ago. Unpaid catering deposit. Similar scheme. No charges filed. The couple settled to avoid embarrassment. She let that land. People don't like to be the headline. I felt heat rise up my neck. So she's done this before. Nora didn't soften it. Looks like I didn't sleep. At 2 a.m., I found myself replaying reception, Vanessa gliding between tables, new clipboard every hour, hugging Emma's friends like she'd known them since grade school. Daniel never far from her orbit, checking something on her tablet, nodding at whatever she whispered. He's just being a helpful groom, Emma had said when I asked why he was always with the planner. Helpful like a shadow. Morning broke like a snapboard. I brewed coffee that tasted like sawdust and called Daniel. He answered on the second ring, cheerful. Surf in the background. Hey, Dad, he said like he'd been mine for years. Cancun is unreal. The venue says my signature was forged. I said flat. Vendors say they never received the wires. Vanessa is unreachable. Tell me you don't know anything about this. A pause, almost imperceptible. Then the easy voice again. Mr. Carter, please. This has to be a mistake. Vanessa's team is probably transitioning accounts. Happens all the time. At midnight from hotel Wi-Fi. I asked, silence. Emma's right here, he said softly, like a warning. Let's not. Put her on, I said. He didn't. We'll talk when we're back, he said, and the line went dead. 2 hours later, Nora texted me a screenshot, grainy footage from a bank camera 2 days before the wedding. Vanessa in a white blouse. Daniel beside her, baseball cap pulled low. They weren't looking at the camera, but their posture was familiar, close enough to trust, far enough to deny. Nora's caption, cashier's checks purchased. Amounts aligned with your wires. I set the phone down like it might explode. I looked around my quiet living room. The shadow of Emma's high school portrait on the wall, the dent in the couch cushion where she'd sit and tell me dreams that had all seemed within reach. Love, a home, a happy day. By noon, the band emailed a formal notice of intent to send our account to collections. I called and begged for time. It's not that we won't pay, I said. It's that we paid the wrong people. The band manager listened. I'm sorry, sir, she said, and I believed she meant it. But we can't be your collateral damage. I wrote a check I shouldn't have had to write. I wrote another to the florist. I told myself I was buying Emma space to breathe while we figured this out. But I also knew I was paying for silence, buying time before the story turned into a public spectacle where comment sections would eat my daughter alive. That night, I stood at my workshop bench, hands on either side of the scar plank, and said it out loud for the first time. Vanessa stole our wedding. The room didn't argue. But as the words settled, another thought climbed up right behind them like a shadow onto a scaffold. She didn't steal it alone. When you've poured your life savings into one weekend, every new bill feels like a nail driven into your own hands. The following days blurred into an endless cycle of emails, certified letters, and phone calls. Each vendor wanted to believe me, but every one of them was staring at unpaid balances. To them, I wasn't a victim. I was a deadbeat father who would stage a grand show and then skip the check. That stung deeper than I can put into words. I kept Emma out of it. She texted me sun-drenched selfies from Cancun. Her in a wide-brimmed hat, Daniel grinning behind her, their arms around each other on the hotel balcony. Best trip ever, she wrote. I didn't reply. How could I? To her, the dream was still alive. To me, it was burning down. Nora, the investigator, was tireless. She pieced together a picture I didn't want to see. The spoofed emails weren't random hacks. They were systematic, deliberate. Someone had set up fake domains for nearly every vendor within a few days of each other. The payment accounts all funneled into 3 banks, then drained into cash withdrawals. Vanessa's fingerprints were everywhere. But then Nora leaned forward across my table and said quietly, she didn't pull this off alone. Too much inside access. She let the words hang there. Inside access. My stomach turned. I thought back to every moment Daniel had hovered around the planning. At first, I'd chalked it up to nerves, then to enthusiasm. But now, the memory twisted. He wasn't hovering. He was handling. I remembered him ushering Vanessa toward the head table with the new seating chart, him leaning over her laptop, both smiling at something only they could see, him telling Emma he'd help the planner so she could enjoy her day. At the time, it had sounded like chivalry. Now it sounded like choreography. When Emma and Daniel returned, bronze and glowing, I plastered on a smile that felt like dry plaster, cracked and brittle. I hugged my daughter, smelled the salt still in her hair. Daniel shook my hand, firm and confident. Best trip ever, he echoed. My chest tightened. He had no idea I knew. Or maybe he knew exactly what I knew, and was betting I wouldn't say it. Nora met me that night again. She slid a flash drive across the table, pulled Vanessa's corporate filings and tracer aliases. There's a pattern. She sets up shop in a new city, builds Instagram-perfect credibility, then vanishes when the money dries. Couples too embarrassed to admit they got conned rarely press charges. But here's the kicker. She tapped the drive. Your new son-in-law's name shows up, too. I blinked. What? Not directly. But 3 years ago in Phoenix, Vanessa operated as Ever After Coordination. A subcontractor for decor listed an assistant named Daniel Holt. No last name match, but same birthday, same hometown, same college records. She looked me dead in the eye. Your daughter didn't just marry a groom. She may have married the inside man. I couldn't breathe. Daniel's smile replayed in my mind, wide and easy. His words over beers before the engagement. Don't worry, Mr. Carter. I'll take care of her. He had, just not in the way he promised. I went home and sat in the dark. Emma's laughter drifted faintly from down the hall where she unpacked. Every instinct in me screamed to storm into their room, grab Daniel by the collar, and demand the truth. But another part of me, the father part, the protector part, knew the blast radius of that move. If I accused him without proof, Emma might side with him. If I played it wrong, I'd lose her. And then, even if I was right, what would it matter? She'd be gone. So I waited. I watched. I gathered. A week later, the first collection notice arrived by certified mail. The photographer's studio had filed a claim. Daniel tossed it on the counter. "Scammers," he said, without looking twice. "Don't worry about it." He poured himself a beer and turned on the game. Just like that. No concern. No outrage. Just dismissal. Like unpaid bills were mosquitoes you swatted away. Emma frowned, but she didn't press. She trusted him. That blind trust cut me deeper than the debt. That night, while Daniel snored in the recliner, beer can balance on the armrest, Emma asleep upstairs, I did something I never imagined myself doing. I slipped his phone from the coffee table. My hands shook like I was the thief now. I entered the 4-digit code I'd once seen him punch in casually. It worked. The messages were there, clear as daylight. Threads with Vanessa. Threads with another number saved only as heart ops. Jokes about old man money. Screenshots of my wire confirmations, annotated with laughing emojis. And then one that made my blood run cold. "Don't worry, these idiots will love me so much they'll cover everything. Maybe even buy us a house." Easiest mark yet. These idiots. My family. My daughter. I put the phone back exactly where I found it, sat down at my kitchen table, and stared into the dark until the sun came up. The next morning, Emma poured coffee, humming. She kissed Daniel's cheek as he shuffled into the kitchen. "We should start looking at houses soon," she said. Daniel grinned. "Oh, we will. Trust me." Trust him. I nearly broke, because I knew, and if I didn't act soon, this wouldn't just be the story of a stolen wedding. It would be the story of a stolen future. I didn't sleep for days. Every time I closed my eyes, Daniel's smirk reappeared, paired with those words, "Easiest mark yet." My stomach churned with rage, but fear too. Fear of losing Emma if I went in too hard, too fast. She had always been stubborn, loyal to a fault. If she thought I was just jealous or overprotective, she'd dig in deeper. That was her nature, and that was exactly what Daniel was counting on. Nora was the only one who knew everything I'd uncovered. When I showed her the screenshots, she didn't even flinch. "Classic pattern," she said. "Vanessa runs the front, makes the vendor web. Daniel plays the inside man, groom/confidence builder. Together, they drain every cent and vanish before anyone can recover." She leaned forward, voice firm. "But this time, you've got proof. We just need timing." Timing. I hated that word. It meant waiting. It meant letting my daughter live in a fantasy built on rotten wood. It meant every smile she gave him twisted the knife deeper. But Nora was right. Moved too early, and Daniel would just spin it as paranoia. Meanwhile, the cracks widened. More letters. More calls. One from the bank itself, mentioning mistransfers tied to my account. I snapped at Daniel casually one evening, waving the envelope. "Care to explain this?" He chuckled, unfazed. "Scammers, Mr. Carter. They prey on folks like you. Don't worry, I'll handle it." He tapped his temple, smirking. "I've got ways." Emma smiled at him, relieved. And just like that, the moment slipped away. My throat burned as I excused myself, locking myself in my study to keep from exploding. Then came the moment I'll never forget. Emma and Daniel hosted a small family dinner, a month after the wedding. She wanted togetherness. I sat at the table, watching Daniel work the room. My brothers laughed at his jokes. My wife poured him another drink. He blended so easily, like he belonged to us forever. But when the beer can stacked high and his eyelids drooped, he finally slumped onto the recliner, phone in his lap. My pulse thundered. I waited until Emma went upstairs for dessert plates. Then, hands trembling, I scooped up the phone. Same code. Unlocked. I opened the chat with his friend. My chest tightened as I scrolled. Soon they'll bend over backwards. They love me already. Just need to ride it out. Old man's wallet is endless. Then another, newer one. She's so blind. The family will pick up the debt. They always do. After that, I'll cash out and we're gone. Next city, new marks. Easy. I snapped the photos with my own phone. Every word a nail in his coffin. But one message stopped me cold. Careful, though. Emma's starting to notice the money stuff. Keep her sweet until we bail. Last thing we need is her dad sniffing around. Her dad. Me. He knew. I put the phone back, my hands numb. Emma came down with a smile, holding a plate of pie. Dad, you okay? She asked. My throat locked. I forced a smile, nodded, and muttered something about being tired. But inside, my world was collapsing. That night, I couldn't hold it anymore. I called Nora, pacing the kitchen like a caged animal. He knows I'm onto him, I said. Her voice was calm, steady. Then we accelerate. Let him think he's winning, but you keep the evidence flowing. Phones, emails, transfers. We'll pin him and Vanessa both. You just need to keep Emma safe, without spooking her. But keeping Emma safe meant lying to her face every day, pretending I didn't know, watching her cuddle against a man who was planning her financial funeral. It was torture. The final straw came the next week. Emma called me, her voice shaky. Dad, you think something's off? Daniel's been different. And today, I found a past due notice in the drawer. He said it's nothing, but her voice trailed off, heavy with doubt. I wanted to shout, yes, it's everything. He's a con, a parasite. But I forced myself calm. Emma, I said gently, just keep your eyes open. Don't ignore your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. There was silence, then a small, okay. When I hung up, my chest ached. She was starting to see. Finally. But would she see enough? Soon enough? Because one thing was certain. Daniel was running out of time. And when he fell, he wasn't going to fall alone. The turning point came faster than I expected. Emma showed up at our house one morning. No warning, no makeup, eyes swollen from crying. She sat at the kitchen table where she used to do her homework as a kid and whispered, Dad, I think he's lying to me. My heart clenched, but I played it steady. About what? She slid her phone across the table. It was open to her email, collection notices addressed to Daniel, but linked to her new shared address. I don't even know half these accounts, she said, her voice breaking. But they all list me now. My credit score's dropping. I can't even apply for a store card without being flagged. I gritted my teeth so hard my jaw hurt. I wanted to storm into their house, drag Daniel out by the collar, and make him explain himself. But that wouldn't save Emma. It would only give him another chance to twist the narrative. Instead, I leaned forward. Emma, I need you to trust me completely. Don't confront him yet. Just forward me every message, every paper, every slip you find. Promise me. She nodded, tears streaking her cheeks. That night, the house felt heavy. Emma had gone home, armed with nothing but my advice and her doubts. I sat in my study with Nora, spreading documents across the desk like puzzle pieces. Statements, fake emails, screenshots. Nora whistled low. He's not just sloppy. He's arrogant. That makes him easier to catch. But catching him required a plan and timing. The following week, the family gathered for another dinner, this time at Emma and Daniel's house. It was supposed to be casual. Pizza, wine, laughter. Instead, I walked in on a nightmare dressed up as normal. Daniel was all smiles, handing out drinks, making toasts. To family, he said, clinking his glass. Everyone cheered. Everyone except Emma. I saw it in her eyes. She was watching him now, not adoringly, but critically. Doubt had rooted itself deep. When dessert rolled around, Daniel excused himself to take a quick call. Emma's phone buzzed on the counter. She glanced at it, then looked at me. My pulse jumped as I caught the name. Vanessa. She picked it up, hesitated, then handed it to me under the table. You answer, she mouthed. I slid out of my chair, heart hammering, and stepped into the hallway. I whispered, hello? The voice on the other end was sharp, irritated. Where are you? The transfer hasn't cleared. If you don't close this week, we're sunk. Do I have to do everything myself? I froze. She thought I was Daniel. I forced a cough, lowered my voice. Working on it. There was silence, then a hiss. Don't screw this up. We've built this for months. One slip and we're finished. Then the line went dead. My hands shook as I handed the phone back to Emma. Her eyes widened. Who was it? I swallowed. The truth, and you need to hear it. We didn't go back to the table. Instead, we sat in her kitchen while I laid out everything, screenshots, messages, the pattern. Her face crumpled, her breath coming in sharp bursts. Dad, he used me. He used all of us. I wanted to hold her, shield her from it, but she straightened suddenly, wiping her tears. No, he doesn't get the last word. That was the moment I knew my daughter wasn't broken. She was angry, and anger, paired with truth, is a dangerous weapon. The next day, with Nora's help, Emma contacted the bank, the police, and even the FTC fraud unit. She froze her credit, filed disputes, and handed over every shred of evidence. And when the investigators came back asking for more, I gave them what Daniel never expected. The recorded voicemail from Vanessa traced back to a prepaid phone registered in another state. The net was closing. Daniel still thought he was in control, but he didn't realize the ground beneath him had already cracked. The only question left was how loud the fall would be when it came. The fall was louder than even I imagined. 2 weeks later, Emma and I sat side by side in a courtroom in Lincoln, Nebraska. Daniel stood across the aisle, his suit rumpled, his once slick hair hanging limp. He looked smaller than ever, like a man stripped of his costume. His lawyer whispered frantically, but Daniel just stared at the floor, shoulders slumped. The judge read the charges. Multiple counts of fraud, identity theft, conspiracy. The evidence was stacked so high it looked like an avalanche. Emails, forged applications, doctor contracts, even the recording we'd turned over. And worst of all for him, Vanessa had cut a deal. She testified in exchange for a lighter sentence. I'll never forget Emma's face as Vanessa pointed across the courtroom and said, Daniel orchestrated everything. He told us we'd never get caught because her family was too trusting. Emma didn't cry. She didn't flinch. She just clenched her fists on her lap, her knuckles white. Daniel tried one last card. He turned to Emma, eyes wet, voice shaking. I loved you. This was all for us. Don't you see? Emma's reply was ice. Real love doesn't steal. Real love doesn't lie. You never loved me. You loved what you could take. The room was silent. Even the judge paused. When the gavel finally came down, sentencing him to 7 years, I felt a weight lift off my chest. 7 years was enough, maybe, but it was justice. And more than that, it was closure. But there was still the matter of Emma's name, her reputation. For weeks, she'd been dragged through the mud. At first, the prosecutor even considered her a suspect, whispering that she might have been an accomplice. Those were the darkest nights, when she thought the world saw her as guilty. Then came the turning point. A forensic report landed on the prosecutor's desk. Metadata from Daniel's phone, proving Emma had never sent a single fraudulent application. Every timestamp, every IP address, every login tied back to him, or Vanessa. The weight shifted. The suspicion evaporated. Emma walked out of court not just free, but vindicated. And then, the unexpected. The judge awarded her restitution. Full reimbursement for the wedding she'd been tricked into paying for, plus damages for emotional distress. For once, the system didn't just punish, it protected. That evening, as we sat in the same kitchen where she'd once shown me the first debt notice, she pulled out a small paper bag. Inside was the Eiffel Tower keychain she'd tried to buy on their honeymoon, the one that first revealed his empty bank account. She turned it over in her hand, smiled bitterly, and said, "Funny, isn't it? A cheap trinket saved my life." I hugged her then, tighter than I had since she was a child. Not the trinket, Emma. You did. You were strong enough to see the truth. Today, my daughter is rebuilding. She lives alone, happier than I've ever seen her, working hard, free of his shadow. And Daniel? He's just another inmate, with a number instead of a name. But I'll never forget the lesson. Monsters don't always come crashing in. Sometimes, They show up in a tuxedo, smile for the family photos, and slip a ring on your daughter's finger. And sometimes it takes nothing more than a broken purchase of a cheap souvenir to reveal the lies that could have destroyed everything.
Subscribe to the channel and write in the comments which city you are from.